Hi. So, good morning everyone. Topic for today is about United Nation. So, what is United Nation? What comes in your mind if you hear the word United Nation? Probably you will think about this is an organization, a group of people, or it could be a group of individuals or a group of countries. Okay? United Nation is is an international organization. So international organization because it is an organization composed of different countries. So the member of United Nations are countries. It is founded in 1945 after the Second World War by 51 countries committed to maintaining international peace and security, develop friendly relations among nations, and promoting social progress, better living standards, and human rights. So the main purpose of United Nations is to maintain international peace and security. So para daw na kalinaw internationally. So in other words, in every side of the world, in every country, there will be peace because of this organization. And of course, this organization is being created to develop a friendly relations among nations, and of course to promote social progress, better living standard, and human rights. So, that's the definition of United Nations. So, what are the main purposes of United Nations? First is to keep peace throughout the world. So kinsa magoy gusto gera. So di ba commonly uh, ang United Nations sa una is created after Second World War. So the main purpose is to keep peace throughout the world. Second, to develop friendly relation among nations. Third, to help nation works together to improve the lives of poor people, to conquer hunger, disease, illiteracy, and to encourage respect for each other's rights and freedoms. So, gusto po ng United Nations is para tabangan tong mga pobre nga tao. So, also to help those developing countries to conquer hunger, disease, and illiteracy. So, they are not limited on providing informations, but of course, they want to work together pertaining on uh, a helping hand from one country to another. So that's why if maka-observe mo sa Pilipinas, kung na ay mga calamity, there are countries who will help, who will expand their hands towards to the country. So to be a center for harmonizing the actions of nations to achieve this goal. So another purpose or main purpose of United Nations is to be a center for harmonizing the actions of nations. To achieve this goal, para ma-achieve daw ning tulo ka purpose, the United Nations becomes the center for harmonizing the actions of nations. So what will be the next? So, United Nations structure. So considering it is an organization, so there is an structure rather. So the first structure or the first component of United Nations is General Assembly. So unsa man ni General Assembly? General Assembly is the main deliberate organ of United Nations. So may deliberate organ, mata ba ni siya? Ilong, ba? It is composed of representatives from all member states, which each of which has to vote. So from the word assembly, so the United Nations they have an assembly. So in every assembly, each member country has its own representative. Where if they have something to discuss, that member or that representative need to vote. Need to vote for them to derive a certain idea or a certain protocol or rules that need to be followed by those member countries. So under the charter, the Security Council, under the charter, the Security Council, no, the second The second uh, structure is the Security Council. So, unsa man po yung Security Council? The Security Council has the primary responsibility for the maintenance of international peace and security. So, in other words, kaning Security Council, ang iyang purpose or this structure, the responsibility, ang ilang trabaho is to maintain international peace and security. So, they will be the responsible for securing peace and securing every member countries from any war or any problem. And of course, this council, they're responsible to make the member countries peace and order. It has 15 members and each member has one vote. Under the charter, all member states are obligated to comply with council decisions. Next is kadugay pud ani mo tuplok oy. The Trusteeship Council. So, unsa man yung Trusteeship Council? The Trusteeship Council was established to provide international supervision for 11 trust territories and to make sure that adequate steps were taken to prepare the territories for self-government or independence. So, kini si Trusteeship Council. Sila yung council wherein they are going to supervise those trust territories or those territories wherein uh, can be trusted, and to make sure that adequate steps were taken to prepare the territories for self-government or independence. So next one is the International Court of Justice. So the International Court of Justice is the principal judicial organ of the United Nations. The court is charged with settling legal disputes between states and giving advisory opinion to the United Nations and its specialized agencies. So in other words, kini sa International Court of Justice, kung naay problema from one country to another country or member countries, sila yung in charge to settle those legal disputes between states. And of course, they will give advice or advisory opinions and its specialized agencies. The next one is the Secretariat. The United Nations Secretariat consists of staff representing all nationalities working in duty stations all over the world. Carries out the day-to-day work of the organization. The Secretariat serves the other, which is the other principal organs of the United Nations, and administer the programs and policies established by them. So, si Secretariat, siya yung tig-administer. Siya yung tig-administer ng mga programa o mga policies. So, United Nations Conventions Against Transnational Organized Crimes and Protocols. So, considering that we are on policing, so let's just focus on policing. So, in the United Nations, or the UN, they make decisions, they make an assembly, right? General Assembly, where in fact they're going to determine or they were going to determine what particular protocol or a rules that they need to follow. So the first one is that the United Nations Conventions Against Transnational Organized Crime and the protocols thereto. What do you mean by transnational organized crime? Transnational organized crime are those crimes committed by organized crime group wherein it transpire or it occurs from one place to another or from one country to another country. In other words, the commission of crime does not limit from one country alone. So, in other words, the crime committed by the group takes place from one place to another place or from one country to another country. The United Nations Conventions Against Transnational Organized Crime, adopted by the General Assembly Resolution 55/25 of November 15, 2000, is the main international instrument in fight against transnational organized crime. It opened for the signature by member state at the high-level political conference convened for the purpose in Palermo, Italy in December 15, 2000 and entered into force in September 29, 2003. So the convention is further supplemented by three protocols, so which targeted specific areas and manifestation of organized crime, such as the protocol to prevent, suppress, and punish trafficking in prison, especially women and children. So ang Convention Against Transnational Crime, it is categorized into, or there are three supplemental protocols wherein it is being uh, adopted by the member states or being approved by the member states of the United Nations. The first one is the protocol to prevent, suppress, and punish trafficking in persons, especially women and children. The second one is the protocol against the smuggling of migrants by land, sea, and air. And last but not the least, the protocol against illicit manufacturing of and trafficking in firearms, their parts and components, and ammunition. Countries must become parties to the convention itself before they can become parties to any of the protocol. So those are the three protocols. So try natin ha. So unang protocol, it talks about protocol to prevent, suppress, and punish trafficking in person. That's why in our country we have a law pertaining to human trafficking. Wherein kung wala iyon, so ano mangyayari on trafficking in person? So, kawawa naman yung mga victim. But of course, human trafficking is created because of this protocol. The protocol against the smuggling of migrants by land, sea, and air. Last but not the least, protocol against the illicit manufacturing of and trafficking in firearm, their parts and components and ammunition. So let's go first on the convention. Sorry. The convention represents the major step forward in the fight against transnational crime. So the protocol against transnational crime, this convention represents as a major steps forward in the fight against transnational organized crime and signifies the recognition by the member states of the seriousness of the problem. So they come up to this kind of protocol because they considered transnational crime as a serious problem, not by one country, but every member country of the United Nations, as well as the need to foster and enhance close international cooperation in order to tackle those problems. So to tackle those problems, the transnational crime, so the United Nations uh, come up to a certain protocol that wherein they need to do that one to solve the seriousness of the problem of transnational crime. And of course, the purpose of it is also to enhance the close international cooperation. So, kasi hindi naman pwedeng isang member state lang magwo-workout. It is necessary that every member states must participate, must have a close international cooperation. States that ratify this instrument commit themselves to taking a serious measure against transnational organized crime, including the creation of domestic criminal offenses. So, one of the things that need to be done by the member state is to create a countermeasure or something that will punish those uh, violators. So in that, uh, in the Philippines, here in our country, our government, our country formulated the law against human trafficking because human trafficking is one of the problem as a transnational organized crime. So, including the creation of domestic criminal offense, participation in an organized criminal group, money laundering, corruption, and obstruction of justice, the adoption of new sweeping framework for extradition, mutual legal assistance, and law enforcement cooperation, and the promotion of training and technical assistance for building or upgrading the necessary capacity of national authorities. So because the United Nations created such uh, protocol, then they need to ratify what are they going to do para mas manindot ang output sa ilahang nasabutan. So one way is to commit themselves to take serious measure against transnational organized crime including the creation of domestic criminal offense. That's why they need to create a law. It must be stipulated that the certain crime must be punishable. Second, the adoption of new sweeping framework for extradition, mutual legal assistance, and law enforcement cooperation. So here comes the need to adopt a new and sweeping framework for extradition, mutual legal assistance, and law enforcement cooperation. That's why if our country needs a help, needs an additional information to the other country, it is easier for us to gather information because we are a member of the United Nations. So other than that, promotion of training and technical assistance. So of course, ba kabantay mo mga pulis mapadala sa UN, madunggan premi, wherein in fact those police officer here in our country, they need to given a chance to train themselves to be knowledgeable more than what we have. Kasi if we will stick on what we know, then our enemies are upgrading. So what happened? So it is necessary thus our police officer as well need to undergo trainings which could be which could help their ways or their techniques in apprehending those violators. So, protocol to prevent, di ba? Accordingly na ito'y tulo. So, the protocol against transnational crime or the convention against transnational crime is being subdivided into three protocols. The first protocol is to prevent, suppress, and punish trafficking in person. So, prevent, onongon, suppress, siyempre onongon, and punish. So, they need to provide punishment, especially women and children. Most likely, ang traffic person are women and children because these people or these women and children, they are an individual who are vulnerable to become a victim. So, what do you mean by vulnerable? Dali ra sila mahimong biktima because of their characteristics. So, this protocol was adopted by General Assembly Resolution 5525. It entered into force on December 25, 2003. It is the first globally legally binding instrument with an agreed definition on trafficking in person. The intention behind this definition is to facilitate convergence in national approaches with regard to the establishment of domestic criminal offenses that would support efficient international cooperation in investigating and prosecuting trafficking in person cases. An additional objective of protocol is to protect and assist the victims of trafficking in person with full respect for their human rights. So yun. So the next protocol, the second protocol is protocol against smuggling of migrants by land, sea, and air. So kung sa may kalainan sa smuggling o sa trafficking, si trafficking manggod, ang tao, they are being sold to work or to become a slave or to become a prostitute or their parts of their body will be sold. Whereas kung smuggling migrants, the person is being entered to a particular country without legal documents. So, kasi usong-uso before na mga dili Americans, they will go to America without legal documents, or we call that one illegal entry. So somehow, somewhat, there are individuals who are trying to help, and by helping those migrants, they will be able to benefit from it. So, what do you mean by this? What's the purpose of this protocol? The protocol against smuggling of migrants by land, sea, and air deals with the growing problem of organized criminal group who smuggle migrants, often at high risk to the migrants and at great profit for the offenders. A major achievement of the protocol was that, for the first time in a global international instrument, a definition of smuggling of migrants was developed and agreed upon. The protocol aims at preventing and combating the smuggling of migrants, as well as promoting cooperation among state parties while protecting the rights of smuggled migrants and preventing the worst form of their exploitation, which often characterized by smuggling process. So, maatik sila in return of they will they can find a better place to live like that. But somehow somewhat gipangwartahan ra bay sila He will stay at a particular country without legal documents. So the transfer of the person from one country to another without legal documents is what we call smuggling of migrants. Last but not the least is, bakit ayaw na? Nagloading na ang atong cellphone. So the last one is the no? The last one is the smuggling of the protocol against the illegal or illicit manufacturing of and trafficking of firearms, their parts and components and ammunition. So that's the last one. The protocol against the illicit manufacturing of and trafficking of firearms, their parts and components and ammunition. It was adopted by General Assembly Resolution 55 over 255 of 31 of May 31, 2001. It entered into force in July 3, 2005. The objective of this protocol, which is the first legally binding instrument of small arms that has been adopted at the global level, is to promote, facilitate, and strengthen cooperation among states parties in order to prevent, combat, and eradicate the illicit manufacturing of and trafficking in firearms, their parts and components and ammunition. By ratifying the protocol, state makes a commitment to adopt a series of crime control measures and implement in their domestic legal order three set of normative provision. First, one relates to the establishment of criminal offense. So, kaya meron tayong illegal possession of firearms for us to determine if the firearm handled or carried by the said person is illicit or from illegal trading. Okay? That's the first one. The second basis or the second provision is to system a government. The second to a system of government authorization or licensing intending to ensure legitimate manufacturing of and trafficking in firearms. The third one is the marking and tracing of firearms. That's why in a certain firearm na siya yung mga serial number so that it will be easier for them to determine if the said firearm is fake or illegal one. So that's it. Too much for today. Atong kuan di na mo lihok. About nas family. That would be the end. And thank you.